From the Gray Man Briefing, this is a summary of recent developments regarding the Second Amendment, cybersecurity, protests, supply chain disruptions, national security, law and order, free speech, censorship, government oversight, and more.
For the fourth quarter of 2025, this is Update 3 to the Gray Man Briefing summary of recent developments. Across the country, in California, the governor signed AB 1127 into law, banning machine-gun-convertible pistols to include Glocks. In Louisiana, Texas, and Mississippi, a federal judge ordered the Second Amendment Foundation and Firearms Policy Coalition to turn over their member lists to apply handgun rights for 18 to 20-year-olds, basically a registry. In D.C., a far-left extremist carrying over 200 explosives and a manifesto targeting SCOTUS and religious institutions was arrested outside a church attended by SCOTUS justices. In New York, anti-ICE protesters staged a sit-in inside a federal facility leading to mass arrests, and a pro-Palestinian activist assaulted a federal official inside the United Nations building. In New Jersey, anti-police protesters rallied after a justified shooting of a knife-wielding woman. In Illinois, anti-ICE rioters blocked federal vehicles and were dispersed with tear gas. In Utah, police detonated a suspicious device before a Turning Point USA event. In Arizona, far-left activists were urged by their leaders to avoid attending Charlie Kirk memorial services. In New Hampshire, a pro-Palestinian gunman opened fire at a country club, killing one and injuring others. In Tennessee, a far-right debate group was attacked by far-left and pro-Palestinian students at Tennessee State University. In Oregon, Antifa-affiliated protesters surrounded a federal ICE office and clashed with agents. In Minnesota, a far-left student activist held a rally against Charlie Kirk on George Floyd's birthday, coinciding with the federal designation of Charlie Kirk's Remembrance Day. On a national level, the FAA warned of major flight delays due to air traffic controller shortages intensified by the shutdown. Also, major airports across the country refused to air a video that blamed Democrats for the shutdown. Federal prosecutors obtained court approval for a remote access hack targeting Telegram servers in a criminal case. FBI personnel were terminated over past political activism photos, kneeling for George Floyd. Analysts warn of growing ideological extremism, cyber intrusion authorizations, and infrastructure stressors as intersecting sources of domestic instability. Globally, in Israel, Hamas released 20 Israeli hostages under a U.S. brokered ceasefire, and in Australia, the government ordered a global removal of videos that were not censored, showing the killings of Irina Zaruska and Charlie Kirk. Let's begin today with the Second Amendment. In California, the governor signed AB 1127, redefining what a machine gun is, to include semi-automatic pistols that can be, according to the government, readily converted with a switch device. The law, effective in January of 2026, primarily impacts Glock pistols and compatible models. In Louisiana, the Western District ordered the Second Amendment Foundation and Firearms Policy Coalition to disclose their membership list so that the government could verify eligible plaintiffs in a lawsuit challenging the federal handgun purchase ban for 18 to 20-year-olds. Critics say that disclosure, the disclosure order that is, constitutes compelled doxing or a gun registry, violating privacy and chilling free association, citing a precedent from the NAACP versus Alabama. Supporters frame it as a procedural measure to limit relief to verified members. Appeals are expected over privacy and constitutional grounds. Looking now at cybersecurity, federal prosecutors received court authorization for a remote access search technique allowing covert contact with Telegram systems and servers to extract data from a suspect account. This is the first known federal case granting legal authority to penetrate encrypted infrastructure. The court justified the order based on the likelihood that the data could transit a U.S. network device. Telegram denied any breach. This is Telegram, the messaging service. They emphasized that its encryption prevents unauthorized access, even by its own engineers. The move represents a pivotal test of digital privacy law, setting precedent for government access to encrypted networks under court supervision, raising privacy, jurisdiction, and international data sovereignty concerns. Of course, in this case, they're looking for this child predator. It's a legit court-authorized case, but it could open the situation moving forward to what maybe the next administration or the next prosecutor determines to be illegal content. Let's look now at civil unrest. Across the U.S., ideologically motivated groups escalated street-level unrest. In New York City, anti-ICE protesters stormed the headquarters of ICE there at the Federal Plaza. They entered lobbies, blocked vehicle exits. The New York Police Department arrested dozens, including 11 elected officials, marking the largest ICE facility protest to date. In Broadview, Illinois, anti-ICE rioters led by local officials threw objects at agents and blocked federal transport vehicles, prompting ICE to deploy tear gas and pepper balls. In Eugene, Oregon, Antifa affiliates in Black Bloc surrounded the ICE field office, attempted entry, broke windows, and fought federal agents, leading to nighttime arrests. In D.C., the far-left John Brown Gun Club, a self-described militant organization, increased their recruitment at Georgetown University with flyers promoting armed resistance and celebrating the assassination of Kirk. In Utah, police detonated a suspicious device ahead of a Turning Point USA event. Investigators confirmed the device was non-explosive but timed to coincide with heightened tensions following Kirk's murder. In Arizona, the far-left Northwest Valley Indivisible advised members to stay at home during such Kirk memorials, while in Boston, 2 far-left protesters were arrested for assaulting attendees at a Kirk vigil. In Carbondale, Illinois, protesters shouted down mourners during a campus memorial, forcing removals by police. In New Hampshire, a pro-Palestinian shooter killed one and injured several others at a country club while shouting "Free Palestine." In Tennessee, far-right activists hosted an open debate. They were then surrounded, followed, and attacked by far-left and pro-Palestinian students at the Tennessee State University. Attackers threw objects at the group's vehicle as they fled. In Minnesota, the Students for a Democratic Society organized a rally condemning Charlie Kirk as a white supremacist while celebrating George Floyd's birthday, overlapping with the Charlie Kirk Remembrance Day, where he was awarded the Freedom Medal. Meanwhile, federal actions included the termination of 20 FBI agents who had participated in kneeling photos during the Floyd riots, signaling continued political scrutiny of law enforcement conduct. Together, these incidents reflect deep polarization, far-left street radicalization, and sustained confrontation between opposing ideological factions and the government entities nationwide. Join the Gray Man Briefing for more updates on protests, rallies, marches, and disruptions at graymanbriefing.com. Let's look quickly here at infrastructure. The FAA warned of widespread air travel delays caused by air traffic controller shortages at major hubs including Chicago, Nashville, Houston, Las Vegas, Boston, and Philadelphia. Only 2 of 313 FAA facilities met full staffing levels, with 19 of the 30 largest well below 85%. The federal government shutdown forced essential personnel to work unpaid, leading to increased absences and reduced coordination capacity. Nashville International Airport was placed under a 2-hour ground delay. Reagan National in Washington, D.C. reported arrival slowdowns, continued to plan for these sort of delays and disruptions at airports, at least for the foreseeable future. Looking now at domestic extremism, police arrested 41-year-old Louis Gary outside the Cathedral of St. Matthew the Apostle, where multiple Supreme Court justices, these are conservatives, were attending the annual Red Mass. The suspect possessed more than 200 homemade explosives built from nitromethane, acetone compounds, also to be capped with thermite. They were wired for electronic detonation. His manifesto attacked conservative justices, law enforcement, ICE, and religious institutions. He urged direct action against Christian nationals. Authorities found his writings mirrored anti-court rhetoric seen in the 2022 Kavanaugh assassination plot. The suspect was charged under multiple federal terrorism statutes for possession of destructive devices, attempted use of a weapon of mass destruction, and assault on police officers. The FBI and ATF are investigating links to far-left extremist networks. Moving into global conflict, 20 Israeli captives were freed as part of the final phase of a U.S.-negotiated ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas. The hostages were immediately transported to Israeli medical facilities before reuniting with families. The exchange concluded a 738-day ordeal and capped months of U.S. diplomatic pressure. Reactions in the U.S. were sharply divided. Conservative groups, they emphasized deterrence and security, while progressive voices called for continued humanitarian outreach. Activist movements aligned with pro-Palestinian sentiment rejected the deal, urging continued resistance. The outcome underscored ongoing political polarization over U.S. Middle East policy. Free Palestine activists who have for years called for a ceasefire remained quiet, or they called for Hamas to continue attacks. Looking now at the censorship brief, Australia's e-safety commissioner issued formal takedown orders to X, or Twitter, and other social media platforms requiring the removal of videos showing violent killings, including Irina Zaruska's stabbing, Charlie Kirk's assassination, and the beheading of Dallas motel manager by an illegal immigrant. The content was labeled refused classification and thus illegal to host or share, effectively blocking access worldwide, including the U.S. The Dallas case involved a man named Martinez, a Cuban national previously released by ICE after Cuba refused repatriation. Platforms faced fines up to $825,000 per day for noncompliance. While officials justified the move under the Online Safety Act, critics argued it establishes dangerous global precedent for government-driven censorship, essentially suppressing visual evidence or politically or ideologically motivated violence. That is it for this week's summary of recent developments. Remember that these briefings are delivered in real time to Gray Man Briefing subscribers sent via Telegram and the Signal apps, as well as weekly emails. Please interact with this broadcast to help increase its engagement. Thanks for listening, and as always, remain aware, be vigilant, and stay safe.